Hello and welcome to UNA Forum presents the 21st United Nations Association Film Festival from October 18 to October 28 in Palo Alto, East Palo Alto, Stanford University, and San Francisco. We're going to have 60 documentary filmmakers presenting 60 documentaries, which is fascinating because a lot of people already confirmed that are going to join us for the theme tomorrow. We have in our studio our 4 local filmmakers who are going to tell us a little bit more about their work. We have Michael Schwarz, who is going to tell us a little bit about the story of his film, Silicon Valley Untold story. We have Robin Hauser, who is going to tell us a little bit about her documentary, Bias. We have Erin, who is going to tell us a little bit about the documentary From Baghdad to the Bay. And we have Banker, who is going to tell us more about his documentary, Survivors. So I'm going to start first with Michael. And is it anything that we really don't know about Silicon Valley? And is it something that we haven't seen through internet? Or what exactly did you learn through Untold story, Silicon Valley Untold story?
But you know, the question that we set out to answer, and we created a 3-part series on the history of Silicon Valley, of which the first episode is going to be shown on the 23rd. And the question we set out to answer in the series is how and why did Silicon Valley become such an enduring source of innovation and entrepreneurship that goes all the way back to the 19th century. You know, a lot of people come to Silicon Valley trying to sort of find the secret sauce. And what's been interesting to us is that although Silicon Valley is often imitated, it's never yet been duplicated anywhere. So, the series actually looks into why that's the case.
Mm-hmm. So, Michael, let's see the clip from the documentary Silicon Valley Untold story.
You know, everyone always looks at startup ideas and thinks, oh, I could have had that idea. If only I had thought of Facebook. Easy. And it's just not true.
Most startups fail. And the ones that succeed almost fail, but learn from those failures, and they end up looking almost nothing like their original plan.
It is no coincidence that our buildings are, for the most part, 2 stories high and surrounded by grass. So when things fail and people jump, they just sprain their ankle.
The place we now know as Silicon Valley has been rewriting the rules of innovation for more than 100 years. From radio to computers, radar to movies, satellites to smartphones, the Valley has shaped our lives. But the real story of how this place came to be has never been told. Clairvoyance was in short supply.
The first thing he said to me was, you know, the computer is never going to be as important to society as a copier.
People felt that things like Saran wrap are much more important than a personal computer.
And groundbreaking companies didn't do it on their own.
Silicon Valley would not exist without government funding.
Military spending, defense spending, really mapped out the new economy.
Virtually every silicon chip made until about 1972 was deployed in a Polaris missile.
The surprising history of the place that for more than a century has been inventing the future.
Now we're connected audio, you can see my work, you can point at it, and I can see your face and we can talk.
There you go. That was 1968?
Holy shit.
Silicon Valley created these amazing inventions that changed the way we live our lives.
It just can't be predicted, and that's the beauty of it.
We just saw the clip from Silicon Valley Untold story. Michael Schwarz is one of the producers, directors for this series, actually. It's like a series of 3 films. Tell us a little bit about that, Michael.
Yeah, I think, the trailer lays out some of the themes of the series, which is, for instance, stop-motion photography was invented here in the 19th century when Leland Stanford, who owned racehorses, hired a photographer named Edward Muybridge to try to figure out whether there was a way to get his horses to run faster. And one of the things he wanted to know was whether the horse's hooves all left the ground simultaneously. So to answer that question, Muybridge rigged a series of cameras and had the horse run past, and the horse tripped all the cameras, and that invented stop-motion photography, which answered the question that, in fact, the horse's hooves all do leave the ground at the same time. But it wasn't very long until that invention of stop-motion photography turned into motion pictures. So even the movie business, in some ways, has its roots in Silicon Valley. There's also a lot of government funding involved in the Valley. A lot of people think of the Valley as the kind of, sort of quintessential expression of the success of capitalism. And what few people understand about the Valley is that without massive government investment, the Valley probably would never have become what it is. And in many ways, the government was a bigger risk taker than venture capitalists, and funded, some of the first silicon chips were sold for the Minuteman missile. Without the government as a buyer, that whole business might not have taken off the way it did take off. So I think that, those are some of the, the ideas that we explore in the series, and we do that, over the course of the 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, there are not so many women always in the Silicon Valley, and there are some biases. And this is interesting that the film that we're going to have also at our 21st United Nations Association Film Festival is dealing with that topic of biases. We have Robin, your film is dealing with a lot of the biases toward the sexism, toward racism. So tell us a little bit about your personal story. And this is probably the most difficult always, to put your personal story in front of people through the cameras and tell what exactly we are biased.
Right. Well, the original idea was to really explore unconscious bias or implicit bias and how it affects us socially and in the workplace. And I was about 1/3 of the way filming before we even made the decision or even thought about putting me in as a subject. But the more we dug into this, the more we started realizing that who am I to tell this story if I'm not willing to be vulnerable and to sort of expose my own biases? It was really important to me as a director and to us as a team to not make a film that seemed accusatory or pointing the finger. It was more an exploration of what is unconscious bias and how does it affect us. At its core, bias is a survival heuristic, right? So we have it for a reason. It's protectionary. But the big question we had was, how is that useful in the modern world? And if it's keeping us from having diverse workplaces or a diverse group of friends, why is that bad, and what harm can that actually cause?
So let's see the clip from the documentary Bias.
Implicit bias.
Implicit bias.
Implicit bias.
Implicit bias, which means unconscious bias.
What is unconscious bias?
All of the horrible things that we do to each other that we pretend we don't do.
I feel like everyone has a bias, no matter skin color.
There are countless biases that affect all of us. I wanted to explore unconscious bias and how it relates to gender and race. Where does it come from? What is its impact? And is there anything we can do to change it?
We evolved over millions of years to have the kind of brains that we have today. To be suspicious of people who are different from us, we should ask ourselves, is that useful in the modern world?
You as a neighbor on Nextdoor don't create one of these posts thinking, I'm about to stereotype an entire race.
I would like to not have to scan my neighborhood for who's watching me and thinking I'm a threat.
Your data suggests a moderate automatic association for harmless objects with white Americans and weapons with black Americans.
Objective quantitative studies show that men and women both perceive women different and lesser.
The news about toxic culture, workplaces saturated with sexual harassment and pay inequality, is relentless.
I have this sense that if I fail, it'll be like, well, you see, this is why we don't invest in women.
When you're standing across the table from the people who are writing your checks telling you that you don't deserve this, that's hard because you're literally putting your body on the line.
Bias at its core is a survival heuristic. You can have that gut feeling. It just has to be based on something that actually matters.
We tend to think about our own behavior as somehow more fair and free of bias than it is.
We're concerned about bias being introduced into AI. It's already there because we're the one teaching AI.
Trying to understand what is at the base of some of my perceptions and judgments, that's what led me on this journey.
We saw the clip from the documentary Bias. So Robin, tell us about your personal experience. You went through the test, and that was fascinating. We saw this from the film, and it's going to be very challenging probably for people to do the same thing.
Yeah, it was shocking. I took the implicit association test. The first one I took was on gender career, and I thought, look, I'm a feminist, this is going to be easy. But Tony Greenwald from the University of Washington said, no, let's take the one on gender career and see. And I ended up having a strong association. Actually, I think it was even worse. Maybe it was a strong association for women and family and men in career. And it shocked me. I didn't want to believe the results of the test. I went home and took it again and had the similar result. And what I learned is that these are societal pressures that we don't have any control with. So these aren't things that I explicitly believe or even say, you know, of course I don't believe that, right? I believe in equality. And yet, for whatever reason, I am programmed to have that correlation, that relationship. I believe that there are relationships between you know, men and career and women and family. So that was shocking for me. And the other experiment that we did at the University of Barcelona, which I thought was fascinating, was within virtual reality, I could see what it was like to have black skin and to really get out of and I had this relationship with another woman who was black within virtual reality. And what they were measuring was how much I actually mimicked her behavior when I was in a white body versus a black body. So that was incredibly impressionable to me, and a fascinating experiment.
Obviously, the social pressure and the political pressure is the subject of the Erin Palmquist documentary From Baghdad to the Bay, because your subject of the film is leaving the area where he grew up, and he came to the United States. And there are a lot of reasons for that. So tell us a little bit about the fascinating subject of your film, Erin. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So From Baghdad to the Bay follows the incredible journey of Ghazwan al-Sharif. He came as a refugee from Iraq. He was a translator for the U.S. military there and was wrongfully accused of being a double agent, tortured and interrogated by the U.S. military, eventually released, and we get into the complexities around that in the film, and then comes to the United States. And we chronicle his resettlement here over the course of mostly 8 years, rebuilding his life. We interweave his backstory, and we do that because we show how it really informs his present story. In the course of making the film, he decided he wanted to also talk about his sexuality. He's gay. He comes out and becomes an activist in his community. And there's other surprises in there too. I won't give them all away.
So let's see the clip from the documentary From Baghdad to the Bay.
December the 12th, they took Saddam Hussein in jail. December the 16th, they took Ghazwan in jail, the U.S. Army.
There was always a little thing in the back of my head that said, he's just too good. He's too good at this. Either he's very, very good at deceiving us, or he's really, really genuine.
I didn't think that Americans will come and harm my country. I just gave my soul to them, and they know that. They kept on torturing me, and torturing me, and torturing me. 75 days, until they say, we're sorry. The US Army dropped me in a secret place. They told me to choose what place in the States, so I chose San Francisco. This is what happened to me. Now I'm here.
Together, we are a nation united not by any one culture or ethnicity or ideology, but by the principles of opportunity.
Working for the US Army, I betrayed my family and betrayed the country. Being gay is beyond that.
In Iraq, 6 gay men have been shot to death in the past 10 days, apparently in the form of honor killings.
Having a gay son, it is a big shame for the whole family, for the whole tribe. You will put them in danger.
I don't want to die in a lie.
That was a clip from the documentary From Baghdad to the Bay. Obviously, very emotional story, Erin, and bringing your subject of the film in front of the camera, it really brings an open conversation and trust. So tell us a little bit about making this trust between you and your subject of the film.
Well, like I said, we worked on the film actually for 10 years now. So for 8 years, we were fairly active, so that trust grew. I also was very lucky because Ghazwan was somebody who really wanted to tell his story. The process of making the film was very cathartic for him, and so he was fairly open early on, but that evolved as well. And with his family and the other characters that are in the film, it took a little bit of time for them to get to know me, and once they did, we have a very unusual relationship. It's a strong bond and not like any other relationship that I've ever had.
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with our next documentary filmmaker, Banker White, who worked in Sierra Leone and actually really befriended a fascinating young man who went through a very difficult time in his life also, and then talking about health issues and Ebola. So, Banker, tell us a little bit the trip when you met first Arthur and how you became friends, and then of course after that, working together in the film.
So I met Arthur Pratt, who's the director of Survivors, a film about the Ebola outbreak that happened in West Africa, 2014, 2015, almost 10 years ago. And I had made a film, Sierra Leone's Refugee All-Stars. And I wanted to go back to Sierra Leone after that and teach a workshop. And it was important to me to kind of like teach at the front of a classroom together with another Sierra Leonean filmmaker. So I arrived and started asking around, and everyone I met was like, have you met Arthur Pratt? Have you met Arthur Pratt? So it was just like destined to kind of meet Arthur. He had a reputation, a self-taught filmmaker. He'd gone to school for theater. He's also a local pastor. And I think actually the work that he did in community feels very much like documentary, because he was always driven by important social issues, working together, building trust relationships with the community. And so though he'd never made a documentary film, after our workshop that we taught together, it became something that they did at the center. And like I said, I went to go teach a workshop, and I like to say was like charmed into what happened after that, which is that I came back and helped raise enough money for them to rent a space. So they had a brick and mortar media center a year after we met, and then actually incorporated a nonprofit and have been supporting that team for about 10 years now, 7 years leading up to the Ebola outbreak. And one of the things I think about this project is that like that collective, which is now about 20 people, played a really remarkable role during the outbreak. They were active producing public health messaging that was used on national television, radio. They produced many of the images that we all saw during that period, and then also they produced this beautiful film.
So let's see the clip from the documentary Survivors.
The advent of Ebola in Sierra Leone is something that I take very, very serious, because it touches my life, it touches my faith, it touches the very foundation of my being.
If they tell you how many drivers they don't die. What is train start now this street on now 5. Now 2 left. Near one part, the name Sogo. And they can't listen. You understand?
I don't reach there, but the person are uphill, you know it before I can. One try for see what we do.
This is what I tell you. You say yourself, the army just come into the number this morning, and on an area. That's make it to them. If you see make blunder, they take out, and me they just make number for later.
I believe say God na the impossibility specialist. We say doctor the tire away say ya open all the God can change situation. So I believe for pray for me patients them. I so believe for pray for me patient the way I go inside.
We just saw the clip for the documentary Survivors, which is going to be part of our screening at the medical school on October 26th, and we hope that the banker and also the other people from the crew are going to join us for the screening. And let's also say quickly about the screenings for all of your films. So Erin, your film is going to be screened on Sunday,
October 21st.
October 21st, and we hope also to have the crew and the subject of the film during the screening and also for the Q&As. Robin, your film is going to be screened?
Yeah, it's Monday, October 22nd at 8 p.m. at Mitchell Community Center in Palo Alto.
Okay, and we also hope that we have all crew and the people for the Q&A.
Yes.
Michael?
23rd, Tuesday the 23rd.
Tuesday the 23rd, it's also going to be a part of the panel. We'll talk about the future of technology and Silicon Valley. So these are all the stories fascinating that we really look forward to hear more details and to bring to our audience. Again, this is a part of our 21st United Nations Association Film Festival. Also, tell us just quickly, we would love to know about your way, how you outreach in the community and the organizations that you are working with to bring these films together with the community and how we can invite all of them. So Michael, in your case...
our outreach partner is the Computer History Museum, and they've developed a curriculum for middle and high school students, and also a guide for community screenings, and they're really sort of spearheading that effort.
Wonderful. Robin?
Yeah, with Film Sprout, we developed, and thanks to Silicon Valley Bank, we developed a discussion guide. So we have that, and once we're off the film festival circuit, we'll distribute for education. We have an educational version of the film as well. And we're doing private corporate screenings right now and community screenings as well.
Erin?
Our community screenings are going to begin after the festival circuit as well, and our longest partner has been the International Rescue Committee, who helped resettle Ghazwan here, as well as Human Rights Watch and Human Rights First and the Vets for American Ideals Project. And we also have a lot of local organizations we'll be working with, and then we'll be expanding from there nationally.
And our here in North America, our broadcaster POV is helping us with the community screenings, and we're a network with a lot of universities. We have an oral histories database called We Survive, which has got over 120 hours of first-person testimonials that's going to be hosted at Emory University. And then internationally, we have a lot of partners that we work with throughout the outbreak, and we're doing screenings throughout the continent.
And quickly, social media and the website that people can find you. Of course, everybody can find you also through our website, UNAFF.org, but just quickly.
Yeah, so we're at We Own TV at Twitter and Facebook, WEOWN TV, and then survivorsfilm.com is the film site.
From BaghdadToTheBay.com, from Baghdad to the Bay on Facebook, and Baghdad to the Bay on Twitter.
Okay.
Biasfilm.com and Biasfilm.
And we're Kikim.com, KIKIM.com, and the film is available on iTunes.
Wonderful. So thank you all so much for being a part of our UNA Forum Presents the 21st United Nations Association Film Festival, which is going to be again from October 18 to October 28 in Palo Alto, East Palo Alto, Stanford University, and San Francisco. For all details and information about the program, the schedule, the tickets, you can find on our website, which is UNAFF.org. And also, we'll continue our programs after the film festival in our special screenings that we have year-round. So please to check the website and join us not only for our film festival, but also year-round screenings. Thank you so much again for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.